Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
There's the Black Country Blokes with me, Kev Dillon, Lee Cabot and Craig Pinches. Now, just before I go into advertising our special guests, I just want to give a massive RIP to Sir Captain Tom, an absolute legend. But now, over to the show. And we've got Alice and Lucas, who are from an organisation called Ripple. Now, Ripple, I'll get the guys to explain what it is, but it's all about trying to prevent suicide. Because believe it or not, as sick as this may sound, there's sites where you can go and find out how to complete suicide. So the guys are doing their bit to hopefully stop people from doing it. So there's some interesting stats yesterday. Out of 4 people in this country have now got some form of mental health. For every 1 person that dies through knife crime, which is 1 too many, 4 other people, 4 males, are completing suicide. And that's outrageous stats. So if we can do something to stop our loved ones from doing it, something's better than nothing. So Alice, thank you, and Lucas for both coming on. Would you like to explain something about your organisation, please?
Thanks, Kev. Yeah, and thanks very much for having us on tonight. So Ripple has been produced really actually from quite tragic circumstances relating to myself and my family. So just over nine weeks ago, my only sibling, my brother Josh, unfortunately took his own life on the 25th of November of last year. And obviously, as you can imagine, that's still very raw for us at the moment as family and as friends. Lucas, it was one of Josh's friends as well as mine as well, so he's helping me out with this. But I just found myself really wanting to have a look and see what was going through Josh's head. How could I try and understand what really made him choose to do that? And part of that actually was some of his internet search history. So he was, Googling, searching, terms relating really to self-harm and suicide. And I wanted to experience that myself and actually have a look and see what comes up. And to be honest, I was quite horrified actually at the lack of support that was available for people once they conduct searches of that nature. At the moment, it's just a Samaritans Helpline number. It's black and white. You can just scroll past it. It doesn't really entice users who are in mental health crisis to actually seek that mental health support that they clearly need. And so I sat there and I thought, more needs to be done. There needs to be more of an interception between a user carrying out a search of that nature and then actually seeing the subsequent results, as a result of that search. And that really where the idea of Ripple has been born. We've called it Ripple because on average, 147 people are actually impacted every time somebody takes their own life. So it's not just, your close family, it's also your friends, your colleagues and your wider community. And I know certainly in my village where I'm from at the moment, you can probably tell from my accent that I'm not from near you, but they've been great. The community has been great and they've really come together and they're helping me make this happen. So that really is what Ripple is all about. It's providing an interception and it's providing a range of different mental health options for people to seek help from, really.
Well, you're right, because you hear so many stories of people on a bridge or they're just about to do it. And then something changes, like someone goes, how are you? And that simple bit of care can point someone in the opposite direction. I think that's what you're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I said, at the moment, it's in the UK, it's just a Samaritans Helpline number that comes up. And I just feel at the moment, my brother was 21. He was in really the most common category, being a male and his age. In terms of, unfortunately, the kind of most common category of people taking their own lives. And a lot of people don't want to talk on a helpline. They don't feel comfortable doing that. Why isn't there options to have text support, web chat support, to download an app, or to have a look at some of the resources that are available online from really wonderful mental health charities? And they're not being promoted. And so it's these charities like Calm and Grassroots and Young Minds and Jacob's 1 Million Lives tool, which are all going to be featuring on my Ripple intervention tool, and encouraging people really to seek a range of different mental health options. If the helpline doesn't work for them, there's so much other things that and forms of support that they can actually access that are readily available for them now.
Papyrus does a lot of that as well. If you want to get in touch with Papyrus, they're I think up to 35 years of age, and they've got apps. They've got apps and emails, because as you said, we had the Samaritans on the show as well, and I've beg my pardon, I thought it was just phone numbers, but I think they are trying to move with the times. But all of these companies are charity run, volunteers, and I'm thinking we need something better. And as I keep saying, and I know it's funding, but like you're looking for the Samaritans number. Why is it the Samaritans, Papyrus, Calm? Why aren't those adverts on the TV all the time? And why aren't the numbers, instead of 0124 222 just 991 or 221, just something so easy? Because when we had the Samaritans on Ash, he said, I don't want to misquote, but he said something like 70% of the callers weren't suicidal. They were just at breaking point, and they just needed someone to talk to. My wife used to work on 999 calls for gamblers, and just how many people are suffering with mental health. But unfortunately, in this country, we're not seeing mental health the same as physical health. And I think we've got to start treating them the same.
Could we, if you don't mind me stepping in there, could it be, and I always like to just discuss any angle to it, could it be the fact that they're not so openly on the TV and that this and the other, because they would no doubt fail to meet the demand in regards to manpower to deal with such an influx of call-ins? Because no doubt, we spoke to someone from the Samaritans, and it's just on the increase, people that like need help and people that want help, and then they've got to determine who's only a bit down because the cat's got missing and who's this and the other, but they have to be there like without judgment just in case. So would it be that they would struggle with the influx if it was so openly out there?
But I think if it was out there, sorry, you go.
Sorry, Kev. I think that's a really good point, and I think capacity to deal with potentially quite a vast increase in volume is really important, and that's something definitely which I've certainly considered on the Ripple tool itself. It's all very well promoting these other charities, but if somebody is actually utilising that and reaching out for help, and then that charity doesn't have the necessary staffing and manpower to actually deal with that uplift, then actually potentially there's more harm being done than good there. So I think that's really important. I think the other thing that I've learnt in the short amount of time that I've been unfortunately thrown into this kind of topic is that the language and the way in which it's presented is really crucial, because in some instances it can even encourage people to actually have those suicidal thoughts. So there's a really fine line between providing that help and support and offer of assistance, and actually potentially encouraging somebody to think about it in the first place. So I think that potentially might have something to do with the advert piece also.
So we're always banging on about, we want this mental health awareness in schools, even from primary school. Like my daughter's 5, so I'm constantly teaching about empathy. I'm talking about feelings, why you're angry, why you're frustrated, why you're sad. And I think when we're trying to educate people at the age of 25, that guy's had 25 years of being messed up. He's learned how to throw his hands. He's learned how to be a hobbit. He's learned how to be an alcoholic. He's learned how to be a drug addict. But if we can get him young, going, Kev, why do you keep hitting Lee? Lee, why do you keep making jokes? And get the kids talking about their feelings and make it aware that it's okay to be like that, and try and get them at grassroots instead of oak trees.
Because it's already of the understanding by the time you're, like you say, mid-20s, late teens, the ego or the facade or whatever it is you want to call it has already been toughened to the fact that if you cry in public, you're this. If you whinge about this, you're that, you're a complainer, man up, get on with it. You know, even for the females as well, it's like, oh, it complains and this and the other. And I think by the time you get to your late teens, your mid-20s, and then it just keeps going on from there. Like you say, it's already the norm not to express them feelings.
And I think, I mean, obviously, when you think about it sort of from like a psychological standpoint, those sort of reinforced messages get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think, obviously, if you can stop those sort of negative preconceptions, I think that's going to be have such a huge impact. And I think, even in the last sort of maybe 5 to 10 years in this country, we've made outstanding leaps and bounds. I mean, obviously, you think about what it was like sort of 5 to 10 years ago, this wasn't even on the radar. And now people are much more open to it. And I think, like you said, guys, getting back into the schools is going to start that sort of thing in their mind to say, this is okay to do this. Because obviously we're all of a certain age and we may have been brought up slightly differently. And I think trying to have those open conversations will have such a huge impact on the generations that come after us. So yeah, I think getting into schools and making this conversation a sort of key topic is going to be absolutely vital for kids. I think nowadays.
Social media, I think, ties into that hugely as well. You know, and the impact of social
media. There's been something I read today, not going on about it, but I think Zuckerberg's having to have to anything inciting any hate or anything like that cause distress. I think them having to I think them under the cosh now to deal with that and prevent it and have algorithms so as anything's picked up straight away so as it causes less harm. And I think getting into the schools and that, like you say, it never was when we in the 90s when we was at school, when we was at primary school. But just like anything, as people evolve, as humanity evolves, you have to address. It's not like, oh, we've evolved so far now, the education's what it is, to be like that for the next 10,000 years. You have to say, well, ours people's mentality or spirituality or emotional state evolved, and how can we address that? It's like with the curriculum, they all say it's outdated, and that's the exact same. This is like your mental health curriculum. It's outdated. We need to intercept when them younger. I do want to ask a question, actually. Obviously, you won't be able to answer this factually, but is it of your understanding that if people are searching these terms, that they're still in the decision stage? They're still yet undecided, and then looking for convincing either way?
It's a good question, and look, you know, I don't know the kind of ins and outs, you know, in regards to the reasoning behind. I think it's a bit of a two-pronged approach. So you've got the people that are potentially looking for almost justification into whether they're making the right decision, of which, unfortunately, there are some horrific websites available online that actually, you know, actively encourage that action. And I think you also have the aspect here of techniques, ways to go about it, which unfortunately is what my brother was doing. You know, and there wasn't enough of an interception when he was conducting searches like that to actually say, you know, stop, there's lots of resources available for you here. You know, that isn't just a Samaritans Helpline number. And look, I'm not downplaying the fantastic work that Samaritans do, because they're wonderful, and you know, the helpline number is there. But I can't help feeling it's a bit of a tick box exercise from the tech giants, the search engines, the social media platforms, just to say, look, you know, we've got this helpline number on here. It just isn't enough anymore. So for people looking for justification, for people looking for ways and means and techniques, and actually their questions relating to you know, how that works, I think is really the kind of two main reasons why people go on and do it.
I think it's and I don't want to sound disrespectful here, but I think it's kind of like you said, it's like a lazy default. Oh, here's your option. It's a one size fits all. And
that's right.
What surprises me is the fact that tech giants, you know, they spend billions upon trillions on how to advance a smartphone to make your life easier, but they don't spend billions and trillions on how to advance your mind frame to make your life easier. And I think this is the dilemma we're in. We're rich in all the sources that add value to our life to a certain degree, yes, but without life, what is there to add value to? And I was told just today, actually, just before I came on here, that I know someone that searched the exact same sites, and they said they're going too far into it. There's people telling you what's best technique, what's best way of doing it for the most impact, and things like this. And you think, like, wow, there's more on how to see it through than there is on reasons as to why you probably shouldn't. And
you're right. And why are those websites coming so high up in the pecking order when you actually carry out a Google search? Or I don't understand it. It should be, if this tool isn't implemented, and obviously it will take a little bit of time for that to happen, hopefully. But in the meantime, why aren't the NHS results or charity partner results bumped right up to the top of the search results? Why have we got websites, actively encouraging people to do something like this? Not just because of themselves, but the absolute chaos and devastation that this causes. I'm living right now.
That's
and
something easy to do as well, isn't it? That's something really, really easy to do. There's no excuse not to do it.
I know it costs. Sometimes it costs money to actually do that, which again I feel is completely wrong. So it's a flawed system. And I'm hoping some amazing people that I've met over the last few weeks that I can really make this happen and try and get a change there for that.
But Alice, because we're talking about these websites, and I want to remind everyone out there, if you are having these thoughts, pick up a phone call, be it to a Samaritans or to a friend, or even if you have to just email the Black Country Blokes, because no matter how rough it is, your life is worth saving. And I just want to say, because when I talked to Alice the other day on the phone, she said there's no mourning like suicide mourning, because you haven't got anyone to blame. You haven't got the person who runs you over. You haven't got the disease to blame it on. So could you just tell us about your experience of the mourning, please?
Yeah, Kev, I can. And look, this is something that I'm still very much in at the moment. Lots of us have lost somebody, a grandparent to old age, or to unfortunately a common disease like cancer, or even COVID now, unfortunately. And I wouldn't say it's normal or I'm downplaying that in any way, because obviously it's devastating at the time for the family and the friends involved. But to lose somebody to suicide, in my experience, really just is like no other, because somebody has chosen to do this. It was a choice. It wasn't something from natural causes. And you also don't have any answers. You don't have any answers as to why. Whereas, you would do if somebody, died from COVID. We take Sir Tom as an example today. We know the reasoning behind why, unfortunately, he passed away. But when somebody chooses to take their own life, you don't have that. And it's the whole aspect of the unanswered questions and trying to piece bits of the jigsaw together to try to make sense of what's happened and why it's happened. And then, from my experience personally, Josh was my only sibling. So it is very much me and my parents at the moment trying to make sense of this on a daily basis. And I think from all three of us, we take it in turns almost in our grief. One day I might be really struggling, and my mother might be fine. The next day my dad might be really struggling, and I'm okay. So we're all really having to rally around each other at the moment and support us, because it really does differ on a day-to-day basis. And I think the other difference here with losing somebody to suicide is actually the anger. How could you leave us? How could you let us have to pick up all of the pieces that you've left behind, and deal with your estate and all of that kind of stuff that perhaps people don't really think of when they're in that mental health crisis at the time.
It's the pain that's left behind, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And
you carry on. Sorry,
you're allowed to talk. Great.
I was just going to say it's the amount of phone calls that I've made over the last 9 weeks is just been huge. And I just think if Josh perhaps could see what would have to be done, post the incident, would he have done it? And that's an answer that I'll never get. But it's just unraveling the life that he led, really, and just trying to make sense of it on a daily basis. But he was 21. He had his whole life ahead of him, and and he chose a way out, basically, of his situation, when in fact there were many ways out of his situation, in this life for him to take. And that's really the heartbreaking thing. It's a waste, and as Kev said, if anybody is watching this and feeling like that, there are so many people out there and so many mental health resources and charities and people that love you that, just want you to stay around and give you that reason to be here.
And it's like, at every show, there's always helplines at the bottom of this. Because I beg my pardon, what's your name again? Sorry, not Alice.
That's all right. That's right, it's Lucas, no worries. It's Lucas, no worries.
You were his friend, wasn't you? I mean, it's one thing being a sibling, a blood sibling, but when you're your brother, your mate, your old pal, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? How did it affect you?
Yeah, I mean, I met Alice back when we were at university, and as a sort of side note, we absolutely hated each other to start off with, which is quite funny.
Really, major hatred. I still do sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on the day. But we're really close, and I met Josh through Alice, and I remember getting the phone call, and it wasn't from Alice, because obviously Alice was in a completely different place. It was from a friend, and I can't even begin to describe how it must feel losing someone closer than what I was with Josh, because my stomach sank to the floor. I was speechless. I was angry. Sort of the emotions just flooded. And again, Alice mentioned that, I've lost friends in a car crash before. And that was horrendous. But this it's just the worst feeling. I can't even describe it. And I think that is something to really consider if someone is going through this and someone has lost someone. I think the amount and the level of support that is around, not just necessarily from sort of the charities and everything else, but friends, family, and community, it's actually overwhelming. I've been trying to support Alice, trying to get some traction on this, trying to sort of help her manage all sort of the boring tasks that might take a little bit of time out of her day and that sort of stuff. And I'm not doing it for anything other than I want to support Alice. And you're going to have friends like this if you are listening, and obviously you three gents, you're going to have people supporting you. And I think that's really important to bear in mind. Just the amazing levels of support, especially we were chatting just before we came on live, weren't we? We sort of said before it was a case of, in the first lockdown, everyone was doing Zoom meetings and everyone was doing quizzes and everyone had a bit of a good time. And it's sort of taken a bit of a dive, hasn't it, since then? And even having conversations like this sort of break up my week, which is great, so thank you. And those sort of things, just breaking those little habits and realising the support if you are struggling, I think is just so vitally important. And I think the work that Alice is doing has just been outstanding. I've got to give so much praise to her. I didn't want to come on here really just to praise Alice, to be honest, because the amount of work she's done is just outstanding in 9 weeks.
I'll pay you later.
No, you deserve credit though, Alice. You do deserve it, because we need more people like yourselves doing this. I did my mental health first aid course just before the madness, and they're saying we've got to start asking the question. And the hardest question we'll probably ever ask is, Craig, are you suicidal? Because we're shitting ourselves. How about if he says yes? What am I going to do? But hopefully, if he opens up, I can try and talk some sense in. But if I can't, say, here's a phone number, phone up the parents, phone up someone, and try and get the community around them. And ask that, and it'll be the most frightening question you'll ever ask. But that question might save that person's life. So don't be frightened of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I attended the mental health first aid course actually recently as well, because I'm trying to make sense of this. I'm trying to see if there is signs and what it is to look out for. But I think going back to Lucas's point, the support that me and my family have received since this has happened has actually been quite phenomenal. Even to the extent of, you know, strangers, to be honest, you know, inboxing me on LinkedIn saying, look, you know, this is my story. I know exactly how you feel. I've lost a brother too. Here's my number. Give me a text, give me a call anytime. I've even met LinkedIn 2 individuals who have both lost their sons, unfortunately, in exactly the same way that we lost Josh. And one of them was a father and one of them was a mother. And they've both taken time out of their days to actually speak and have conversations with my mum and my dad, respectively. You know, because it goes back to what we said earlier, Ken, you know, it's really hard to comprehend what it actually feels like to lose somebody by suicide unless it's actually happened to you. And as a result, you know, they were able to provide that different perspective for my parents. That was exactly the same as them. You know, they've been through exactly what we're going through. And I think that's been really, really beneficial. But the outpouring of support, not just for Ripple, but for me and my family, you know, personally has just been unbelievable. So, you know, if there is anybody watching that has done that, and, you know, right now, so I just wanted to say thank you, really, as well.
I mean, I think what I heard off the both of you, and when I've had friends who have completed suicide, as you say, it's the anger. Like if you'd have been run over, you could hate the driver because you've got someone to hate. You could hate the illness, but when you've got nothing to hate and you don't want to hate that person you've lost because you love them so much, the hate just goes inwards then, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. And it's just complete disbelief that they felt that was the only choice at the time, I think, as well. And it's, you know, the anger that, you know, why didn't you come to us? Why didn't you speak to us? And then you start questioning yourself, and you've got the whole guilt aspect of this as well, which is, you know, what could I have done differently? If I'd have done this, would it be a different outcome? And you just don't know the answer to that. So there's definitely a personal element of guilt here, but there's also a huge amount of anger. And, you know, you can probably tell from my kind of tone now that that's still very much, you know, bubbling up inside of me, and I haven't accepted that yet at all. And I don't think I'm going to accept that for a long while.
Have you gone to see anyone about it, a grief counsellor or a hypnotherapist?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got counselling that me and my parents are both doing, you know, separately. And I'm also actually this week on Thursday going to my first group bereavement by suicide session. It's run by survivors of bereavement by suicide, so it's SOBS. They're a fantastic charity. Unfortunately, we can't meet in person at the moment because of COVID, but they're doing a Zoom meeting, and it's really a bit of a safe space for friends, family who have unfortunately lost somebody to suicide to just get together and have a bit of an open forum, really, around our feelings. So it's my first one on Thursday. I'm a bit apprehensive about it. I don't really know what to expect, and I think it will probably be a bit more of a listening exercise for me, to be honest, in my first time. But I'm hoping that might give me a little bit more understanding, really, of what's happened and how people have dealt with this situation. Because, you know, I have to keep reminding myself it's only 9 weeks.
Yeah, and bloody, you know, from the bottom of my heart, how brave you are after 9 weeks. You know, to come on here and talk so raw and honest. It honestly, from the bottom of my heart, about courage and bravery, and you sound like a wonderful family that's standing there by each other. So may your journey carry on. Lee, have you got any questions, bro?
We've just got some nice comments that are coming in. No direct questions, Kev. But yeah, you are really brave, both of you. You know, it's hard enough to talk about, let alone on camera, I can imagine. And I can relate to some things you said in terms of there's people who've contacted you who've been through the same situation. My youngest is disabled, and some of my favourite guests who come onto this podcast are people in that same situation because you can relate to them, and it really does help opening up.
Yeah, it does, absolutely.
Yeah, I think massively the opening up thing is it's easy. I know you might see quite a lot of like sort of your memes and your Instagram posts, or just send that text to someone. But if you know someone who is struggling, it does brighten up their world just to sort of have someone checking in on them. And it takes 5 seconds out of your day to go, hello mate, hey, how's it going? And it can really change someone's mindset. And I think that sort of mindset piece is really important. And if someone, I think if you're feeling slightly down or depressed or low or anxious, you can take small steps. And if you've really got to get into that mindset of trying to help yourself and to help others and that sort of stuff, because sort of speaking slightly personally, I was in a real bad rut at the end of last year. And this year I said to myself, right, I'm going to lose some weight and I'm going to go back to my old habits of waking up when I used to. And all of a sudden, I'm in such a positive mindset. I'm helping Alice. I'm doing better at work. I feel more generally positive. And it was just a case of going for a walk every morning and getting up a little bit earlier. And that's literally it. It's amazing what it can do. And I've had friends text me saying, how you doing? It's like, oh, lovely, they're thinking about me. And I think if you can text someone and make their day, it can make a whole world of difference, especially when we're talking about suicide as well, right? If they're having that day where they're really thinking about, right, I can't go on any further, and you get a text pop up just to sort of say, oh, hello, I'm just spoken to you, how are you doing? It completely can change that mindset. And I think that is going to be something really important that I do going forward, especially after what happened with Josh, is making sure I'm checking in on people who I know could be struggling, people who are isolated, people who have had mental health issues in the past and that sort of stuff. And I think that's quite an important thing to sort of bear in mind when we are talking about sort of suicide prevention, obviously just general mental well-being as well. I think having that sort of support network is so vitally important. And if it relates to you personally, even better.
I think your point on exercise is really crucial. And actually, you know, I'm in your boat, Lucas. I also need to stop eating the pies and go out on a walk every morning as well. But you know, it's easier said than done sometimes when you're in such a state of grief. And there's been, you know, numerous days over the last 9 weeks where, you know, my parents have said, you know, not in a horrible way, but, you know, Al, you need to get out. You need to go for a walk. You need to get out, because it is very easy, unfortunately, to cocoon yourself into a room and not really want to actually get out at all. And there's been many days over the last 9 weeks where I've felt like that. And actually yesterday for me was one of those. So I think it's important, and I think it does help. And it's something that I'm trying to include as part of my day going forward. And if I can lose a few pounds at the same time, then it's a win-win, isn't it?
I always call depression the dark room, because it's all right if you just nip in and nip out. But when you're in there, you find out behind that dark door, it's actually a maze. And long you're in there, you twist and you turn, and it's bloody hard to get out. So if you have got that lifeline, that beacon of love to shine to help someone get out, and that could be by phone call, or I know it's difficult, we can't go knocking on each other's doors now for a cuppa or a beer, but just make contact, be it a text message, a phone call, or whatever you kids do, and just reach out and let people know you are there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy. I never really thought about that. That's an amazing analogy. I think that's like so true. Like I agree. As if you don't want to do it, you won't do it. But if you can help, then if someone can help someone else, then I think that's so important.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously the whole essence in terms of you know, why I'm doing Ripple, because not only am I kind of channeling grief, to be honest, into this, but I just can't bear the thought of another sister or another set of parents having to go through what we are currently living. And if there's anything that I can do, you know, as part of Ripple, I've said this to many of the charities that I've spoken to over the last few weeks, that, you know, we're a non-for-profit. My profit really will be when somebody emails me or calls me and says, look, I conducted a search like this and wanted to take my own life. Your tool came up and I got the mental health support that I needed. And that for me is my profit, really. Because, you know, as I said, this really is a living nightmare at the moment that we're in. And if I can stop any other families having to feel that, then I will. So that really is the kind of whole essence of Ripple.
And if anyone would like to get in touch with you, I know we're scrolling at the bottom of the screen, but would you like to tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course. So we're on all social media, run by Lucas on the call as well. So we're on Facebook, obviously, Ripple Suicide Prevention. We're on Twitter under Ripple Tools, and we're on Instagram under Ripple Suicide Prevention as well. Our website, hopefully you can see on the screen, but it's www.ripplesuicideprevention.com. Or you can speak to me on LinkedIn as well, Alice Bendy, and I'd be really happy to speak to anybody, not only about Ripple, but also any experiences that they might have, any tips or advice for me to kind of get through this as well would be great.
Craig, is there any questions you'd like to ask?
Not really questions. I think it's just, listening to what you guys have been saying and that. I think we just need to, as a race, just re-engage empathy a little bit more. And instead of being passively involved with someone, I mean, I've had it before where I've been in the funk a little bit, and I've been in the fog, and I've messaged somebody or they've messaged me, how you doing? And I've replied thinking, you know what I mean, I'll have a conversation. And I've sort of briefly said what I'm feeling, and they've sort of brushed over it and hopped conversation. And either that's because they're only passively, messaging me or passively listening to me, or whether they just don't understand how to do it. And I think if we can learn how to communicate, which is the key, is not only listen, but know how to ask, listen, and then respond. Just them 3 steps that could make a world of difference. And I think you only get that by engaging in empathy with other human beings and an interaction other than, message me, hit me on Facebook, tag me in it, and this and the other. I think we actually need to say, if I'm asking how they am, actively listen and respond accordingly. I may not have the answers, but I will say something to you that makes you aware I've listened to you.
Well, what's that saying, Craig? Just because you're hearing it doesn't mean you're listening to it.
Exactly. I mean, again, like a walking quote, I read something the once, and it was, it's amazing how much we see, yet how little we notice. And that was born by, how many times you walk down the street and you say, how long's that post box been there? And someone said, well, it's been there the last 15 years, and you've only just noticed it. And I believe that's the same with your hearing, how much we see, yet how little we notice.
Yeah, and I think also, if you are asked, I think, particularly being British, we just say, yeah, not too bad. Well, actually, there are many days where actually it is bad, and actually you're not okay. And I think more people now need to say, when they're asked, actually, no, I'm struggling today. I'm having a bad one. And then go on to, have that discussion and talk about it. I think too often we just almost fob it off and say, yeah, we're fine, all is okay, all's good.
And it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you weak to be in pain. It doesn't make you weak to be scared. It doesn't make you weak to have panic attacks. You're just a human being, whether you're a 6'4" brick shit house or whether you're a little dolly. We're made from the same stuff. We all get frightened. We all get down. So I think more we can talk about it honestly, hopefully we can beat this.
I think, Kev, if you don't mind me stepping in there, I think it is, like you say, honestly, it's not got to be overly thought out. It's not got to be, you've not got to be textbook trained. You've not got to be any of that. I mean, how many times do you see in the movies, or if you heard your granddad say, or your dad's, if they felt down, they've been in a pub. I know it's not, you can't go in them now, but you've been in a pub and how you doing? Oh, feel a bit cack. And they get into it. And then they spend the next hour, 2 hours pouring the world to rights, really unloading. Now, either one of them hasn't got any premeditative training. They haven't I know how to deal with this because it's on page 16 of the mental health manual. They've just engaged in conversation as human beings, and that empathy has prevailed again. So it's not going to be, if I ask that, I'm not trained to deal with it. Because if you're a human being and you feel emotion, you're capable of expressing empathy. You can help. You don't have to have a doctorate in anything to help people through listening.
Lee, do you want to jump in with that? Because you said it's been brilliant the other day.
What's that? Oh, yeah, you don't have to be. I can't remember what I said now, Kev. You always this, and put me right on the spot there. Yeah, you don't have to be trained, but we're experienced, and I think that's the key, isn't it? And everyone is.
Yeah, you don't have to be an expert. We've just got experience. We haven't got PhDs. We haven't got anything, but we just know how it feels to feel shit. And we're not here to sell you 5 ways of overcoming anxiety. That's bollocks. We're here to help each other, to listen to each other. If I had the answers, I'd bloody give them. But I can only tell you what's helped me. And as one of the quotes from the podcast is, you've got to find your medicine, be it in counselling, be it going having a rattle, hypnotherapy, whatever it is. You'll know the best way. And if you've tried doing it for so long and it's not working, never be frightened of doing something else.
I think that trying something else thing, I think if you're in that mindset of you want to feel better and all the rest of it, I think trying something that may not have worked for you in the past, or even talk to your mates, organise that Zoom call and just sit down for 10 minutes and have a pint or whatever. And I think that is obviously going to sort of help, especially us British lot, with the pub not being open and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I miss the pub very dearly, and it is a place where you can have that chat. And I think we need to sort of start to open that back up again, whether it be a Zoom call or a FaceTime with your mate or whatever. Like me and Alice had a little drink on Saturday night. I had a curry, she had a pizza. It was lovely, and we had a little sit down. We had a chat. We were getting ready for this, and yeah, it was lovely. I mean, all of a sudden we looked at the time. What was it? About an hour and a half, I think.
We had an hour and a half. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was, and it does cheer you up. It does cheer you up. I think the beers helped. Yeah, it does.
In the wise words of Homer Simpson, beer, it is the cause and solution of all life's problems.
You should have kept that one for the end.
Yes, you should have kept that one for the end. Yeah, you should have.
I think there's there's like the psychology behind things, behind feeling better as well, is suggestive thinking. We all know suggestive thinking is a proven thing. If I keep mentioning elephant all throughout the day, and then I ask you to name an animal on the night, the odds are you're going to name elephant, because you've got a suggestive thinking behind it. And I think even if it isn't helplines and stuff like that, if you've got like preventative prompts to prompt them into a better mind state, it's an added bonus, that it doesn't require much manpower after the fact once it's been created, because you play on the role of suggestive thinking. And all that people may dismiss as really insignificant, but I believe that would be a key to people having a better mind frame.
Well, I often talk about an earworm. That song that keeps going over and over in your head. and a lot of the times when we're in a funk, we're listening to that song that we know gets us down. But what we've got to realise is with the DJ have our own mind. To change the record, start listening to Monty Python's Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, or when you know you're going down that rabbit hole, change the record, and if you know Facebook's getting you down, or Instagram, or EastEnders, whatever it's getting you down, change the channel, change the record, because that might just be a little thing, simple way of getting you onto the right path. But guys, thank you so much for coming on today. We're gonna put you on a lot of our whatever they're called, signpostings, and try and advertise the hell out of you, because what you guys are doing is remarkable, and to have much charity. To have so much tragedy and so much strength is remarkable. So God bless you both.
Thank you very much for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, before we finish on a quote, I'm going to advertise Thursday. So have a think. You're lucky I'll give you notice. So as always, on Thursday we're going to just have a chat. Us and our lads just chewing the fat, putting the world to rights. As you all know, we come up with the topic minutes before we come on air. But if there is anything in particular you'd like us to talk about, please be a part of the conversation. I know you mainly write it on Thursdays, but please write in, be a part of the conversation. Be the 4th, 5th, 6th person in the room. Your input's what makes the show. And if you do miss the shows, you can always find us on our YouTube channel and on all podcast platforms. If you have got the time, can you please leave a review on Apple Music? Helps us to climb up the charts. Now that plug's over. Have you got any quotes or sayings that helped you get through life?
Okay, so thanks to Google, I've got one. And I did actually post this the other day on the Ripple Facebook page, but it's stars can't shine without darkness.
I like that.
So until we see each other next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.